Well, joining us tonight to take up what is going on at our border and the appeal for open borders and unlimited immigration into this country, we're joined tonight by Mark Morgan, former U.S. Border Patrol Chief under President Obama. Mark, good to see you. We put up Castro and Bush just for folks to see what's going on. These are talking points. This is a campaign likely orchestrated by the usual suspects, the Business Roundtable, the Koch brothers, the Chamber of Commerce, Wall Street, and K Street. Your reaction to listening to a former president say those things in the midst of what is a national emergency?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that America actually is the most generous country on the planet for immigration. I believe the numbers last year is we let 1 million people legally into this country. So let's just start with that. So on that premise alone, we are doing better than any other country on that fact alone. What we're talking about is illegal immigration and the abuse and exploitation of our law and our generosity, Lou.
Yes, and Mark, to your point, there aren't any 3 countries in the world who combined bring in as many new immigrants into their country and naturalize them as U.S. citizens. That just isn't happening anywhere else in the world. And to hear this claptrap that we've heard now for 20 years, usually under the auspices and encouragement of La Raza, LULAC, a number of ethnocentric activist organizations, and of course now the radical Democratic Party, it's stunning. And the president has put before that same Democratic Party propositions that would have led to resolving the immigration system's many problems, would have assured border security with simply putting the money forward on the wall. He cannot move the Democratic Party to even remotely consider the national interest.
Lou, so that's absolutely right. And what I've actually been saying, the American people need to understand is actually the crisis we're facing right now is the worst in our history. Back in the 90s, when we were talking about that 1.5 million, first of all, we had some recidivism. So the same person was going back and forth 2 or 3 times. And we removed 90% of them. They were Mexican adult males. We removed them. This year, over 1 million that you suggested. But because of our broken laws and because 65 to 70% are families, we allow them in the United States. 700,000 this year. We're going to let into the United States, and we know that 85% of them are filing false claims. How is that not a crisis? This needs immediate, swift, and bold action to address.
And you know, this business, the left has now made Kirstjen Nielsen, you know, their target of choice, attacking her viciously, wanting her to be, as one wag put it, a pariah forever. Trying to keep her from employment because she was part of the Trump administration trying to secure the border. I'd like to get your reaction to that. In 2014, we've seen all of the pictures of what happened with 60,000 unaccompanied minors at our border. Much the same situation for those children as they experienced during a less than a 2-month period of so-called zero tolerance under this administration. The hypocrisy, the viciousness, the venomous, the politics of personal destruction of the left are frankly, I think, going to backfire on this Democratic Party. I don't think, right as it stands now, there's a single candidate among their Democratic hopefuls for president in 2020 who stands even the slightest chance.
So Lou, first of all, anybody who steps into the breach to be the Secretary of DHS will always have my respect. That is a massive department with a massive responsibility. It's not just about border security. It's Coast Guard, it's TSA, it's FEMA,
it's too much.
Service.
Let's be candid. That department was a mistake from the moment it was formed, bringing 22 agencies together with many conflicting missions and duplicative missions. It's a nightmare, and I think that must be, I haven't asked the president, but I think that's part of his motivation in reforming it.
Lou, it's funny. So when DHS was created, I was kind of in the mix of that a long time ago, and I said the same thing. The department is so big, and there's such a massive responsibility for the secretary. Right. So, but having said that, so look, we've got an opportunity here to jumpstart stuff, and I think what's key, and I've been asked this. So, if I was there, what would I do going forward? The first thing I would do is we need to change the mindset, and I think they were starting to do this. We have to stop pretending that Congress is going to be part of the solution. We just need to stop. That can't be the strategy going forward. Any effective strategy has to be based in reality. And the reality is Congress is not going to be part of that solution. So going forward, that immediate, bold, swift action we need to take, it's solely going to rest on this administration and DHS to do that.
And this president is doing precisely that. And I think Kevin McCarthy today. I'm sorry?
And he keeps getting shot down, Lou.
Well, they keep trying. The fact is he's moving straight ahead and trying to change what must be changed in that Department of Homeland Security, whether it's citizenship and immigration services, whether it is the Border Patrol itself and their mission, and certainly dealing with the issue of refugee status, which is a disaster. As it has, as this president had inherited it from the Obama administration, who had, 180-degree different set of values and purpose in mind. I do think that this is the moment where we're going to see once again border security asserted, and I agree with you 100%. And I think it's wonderful that the president recognizes that the left is no part of this country's national interest. Kevin McCarthy, I've just got to say, Mark, as we conclude here, and I'll give you the last word. He turned to Nancy Pelosi today and said quite simply, what have you and your party accomplished in 100 days for the country? There has been no answer. Mark, you get the last word.
Well, so Lou, agreed. And so what we have to do is we have to stop pretending that the government of Mexico is going to be part of the solution, that the Northern Triangle countries are going to be part of the solution, or that Congress is going to be part of the solution. I'm not saying we stop working with them. Those are long-term solutions, and I'm not counting them on the immediate fix. We have to take that swift, bold, immediate action, because if we don't, next month, we're going to get 150,000 people in here abusing our system and allowed into this country. We can't rely on Congress to do it. We've got to take action ourselves.
Absolutely. Mark Morgan, good to have you with us as always. Thanks so much.